Good evening, everyone. I'm Georgia Davis, and welcome to AZ Illustrated Nature. Tonight we'll tell you about one of the world's most precious resources. From Tucson south to Latin America and east to Africa, learn about some creative projects that are saving water. Also, we'll give you the details about an upcoming electric vehicle show and see how people are reducing, reusing, and recycling by shopping at local businesses. But first, here's a look at today's top stories.
A group trying to build power lines to bring renewable energy from New Mexico to southern Arizona is facing a new hurdle. SunZia wants to build high-voltage power lines to carry wind and solar power. The lines would travel from central New Mexico to an area passing east and north of the Santa Catalina Mountains. The project's biggest problem is its possible interference with electronics at New Mexico's White Sands Missile Range. Now a U.S. senator is proposing a study to determine the effects of the power lines on the military site. The project would create an estimated 42,000 construction and maintenance jobs between Arizona and New Mexico. A University of Arizona researcher has developed a phone app that aims to help drivers spend less time in traffic. The app is designed to help people to rethink how they commute. The concept for the Smart Trek app is to encourage drivers to take alternate routes or leave at different times. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
Harvesting rain is a growing passion for many residents in Arizona, and there's a place in Tucson that has been breaking ground for many years, literally, with swales, curb cuts, and other creative measures. Next, we take you to the Dunbar Spring neighborhood north of the city's downtown, where experts and apprentices alike are sharing their techniques and personal perspectives about the physical and emotional value of these projects. This story is produced by Mitch Riley.
Life as we know it needs water to survive. The continued search for life in the universe has depended first and foremost on finding liquid water. In the Sonoran Desert, this precious resource is scant and continually tested by heat and dry conditions. The arid climate limits rainfall to approximately 12 inches each year, most of which comes from the annual monsoon. Harvesting that rain has become a passion for some Tucsonans, including Logan Byers.
And so we're going to be harvesting gray water and the stormwater runoff, and this is going to be really great for our citrus tree here.
Byers, a local landscape designer, makes the connection between life and rain.
It's important for people to get involved in rainwater harvesting here, especially in Tucson in the Sonoran Desert, because we are water. Show me something that's alive that doesn't need water.
Most scientists agree with Byers. People are mostly water. As much as 60% of the human body is made up of water, the heart and the brain 75%. We need water to survive, as do plants, trees, and animals. While rainwater here is scarce in comparison to some regions, Tucson receives its fair share, Byers says.
We get enough rain on each residential property to have a beautiful, lush environment like this if we would just harvest it. So I feel like everyone has that opportunity, and I want to be someone that helps that move along. We've got the spillway here.
She helps move it along by creating landscape features that capture the rain when it falls. Byers designed and built a series of rainwater collection basins along the southern edge of this property in the Dunbar Spring neighborhood.
So when we get a big rain, that water comes all the way through those basins into here, and it fills up pretty good.
After one of those big rains, Byers stood knee-deep in rainwater that collected in the drainage basins. The bulk of the work involved breaking up and removing the pre-existing concrete. Drainage swales and check dams slowed the water and allowed it to filter into the ground.
We had 4 people doing the rock work, 2 people bringing us the rocks, and then 2 setting the rocks, and it took 3 hours.
That work is paying off. Now when the rains come, the water collects and feeds surrounding plants and trees. Shortly after moving to Tucson from Flagstaff in 2006, Byers remembers seeing a man in the rain.
One morning, it was about 6 a.m., I was riding my bicycle to a my cafe job down on 4th Avenue, and I saw Brad Lancaster out in the street. It was a morning monsoon, and he had this 2x6, and he was directing the water to flow into his basins.
At the time, she was not familiar with the ecology of the desert or the benefits of rainwater harvesting. That encounter with Lancaster changed her perspective and how she sees her role.
And I think that image really stuck with me, that drive to really be dedicated to the desert and to really show the neighbors and to show the community that it is sustainable to live here, even on the small amount of rain that we get.
Brad Lancaster is well known and respected in the rainwater harvesting community and has written 2 books on the subject. He has spearheaded efforts to capture rain in the Dunbar Spring neighborhood near downtown Tucson. In the public right-of-way alone, he says they are harvesting 660,000 gallons of water per year that were previously lost to runoff and evaporation. One of the most effective strategies he advocates is the curb cut.
I'm basically walking the flow of the water. So as it flows along the street and the street curb, we then access that water by cutting the curb. So now the water that used to flow down the street and out of the neighborhood flows into this street side basin to irrigate street side trees. So the street irrigates the street trees, which shade and cool the street. If you don't want to do a curb cut, you can do a curb core, which just is a 4-inch diameter hole, and the water just comes through the hole. It just doesn't have as great a capacity as a curb cut.
The byproduct of water harvesting and tree planting in Dunbar Spring is the continued growth of a cooling shade canopy, one that attracts native wildlife, produces food, and encourages interaction between neighbors. The curb cut is just one of the ways that folks in Dunbar Spring are harvesting rain. Lancaster offers this encouragement to people in other neighborhoods.
My advice would be just start. Just start with simple basins beside or beneath your plants if you're about to plant a new plant. And also just go and see other sites where people are doing it so you get a better understanding of what it's like. Read some books about it. Go to some free talks. And then start talking to your neighbors and work together, because it's so much more fun and the work is so much quicker if you work together.
Brad Lancaster and his neighbors are working together to build community and harvest the rain. Beyond the here and now, he sees a legacy.
If this is your home, wherever you are, it makes sense to enhance that place so that it's a better life for us now, our kids, and everyone to follow.
Curb cuts and curb cores in Tucson require a city permit. You can get more details by visiting our website, azpm.org. And coming up next Monday, we'll tell you about the Tucson Rain Jar Project. Learn how residents are finding useful and artistic ways to work with water cisterns, thanks to inspiration from rural Thailand. Now we'll continue the conversation about sustainable and creative projects in other parts of the world, including Africa, Latin America, and Asia. The Tejido Group is based here in Tucson, but staff members and students have been taking their knowledge internationally for years. Joining us is Dr. Mark Frederickson from the University of Arizona's College of Architecture, Planning, and Landscape Architecture. Also here is University of Arizona student Daniel Aros. He is working on his master's degree in landscape architecture. Thanks to both of you for coming in. So first, let's talk about the Tejido project. So what is that?
Well, it's really the Tejido Group. It began about a little over 20 years ago, and it's evolved into an interdisciplinary and international community outreach office wing of the college and the university. And now we're doing projects all throughout Arizona, Latin America, Middle East, and just most recently Asia.
Okay, so what kinds of projects and what is it that Tejido has in mind when they're going out in the community?
Well, first off is to help our students develop into exceptional practicing professionals. So we look for actual projects that are of some relevance to our host country personnel. We work with host country faculty and students and professionals in these projects. And it ranges all the way from urban design to urban revitalization, small town planning, small town revitalization, urban waterfront, and a lot of coastal planning.
All right, so we have someone, of course, who's been on some of these projects. So Daniel, tell me a little bit about some of the Tejido projects that you have actually been on.
Well, I took part in one last fall where we had gone to Muscat, Oman. And so the core issue we had to address was the urban revitalization of one of their primary older towns that had been abandoned and kind of left to the expatriate workers who were living there. So it became more of a social issue due to substandard living and such.
So when you're doing landscape planning, you're not just going in and designing a pretty building. I mean, there are a number of different things that you're trying to take into consideration, I understand. So what are some of those things that you're looking for?
Well, sustainable solutions. We're working in areas of the world that have a very small margin of error economically and socially and environmentally. And so we're trying to look at solutions that are economically viable, that create sources of income, that are environmentally sensitive, that create habitat and link previously disconnected habitat. And socioculturally, we're trying to create areas that would encourage meaningful interactions, moments of learning, those kinds of things. So we're trying to look at an array of items that all work together to create sustainable planning and design solutions.
All right, and of course you're working at the pre-concept phase, I understand. So you're coming
Concept phase.
Concept phase. Okay, so what kinds of methods, and I'll turn this one to you, Daniel, are you using then in this to develop these sorts of plans?
Well, it primarily starts with first going to the site and hand documenting, taking photographs and observations, talking with the local residents who are there and finding out what they think possibly needs to be. Because when you go into a project, you're typically given an ideal program, but many times it goes even deeper than that. So it's more of a continuous process of going to the site, taking that back, trying ideas, learning of the place, going back to the site. So it's more of a cyclical type of process.
So when you talk site, are you talking about a building, a city, a feature? I mean, what does it run the gamut?
Is this one coming my way?
Sure.
This project that Daniel worked with us on, it was an unbelievably crowded, distressed piece of urban fabric, and a lot of poverty, a lot of multicultural tensions. And I have to admit, when we first got there, I wondered, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this one? And these guys hit the ground running and did a wonderful job of site analysis and generated a bunch of concepts that we explored as the 15-week project continued.
And my understanding from reading a little bit about the work is you're not planning in a vacuum. We're actually talking to people who are going to be using the property. You're talking to all the different players that are involved. Am I reading that correctly?
No, that's correct. We had talked and had interaction even through when we had come back to Arizona with the municipality of Muscat. And so, and we also collaborated with some of the graduate students over there in their local universities. So there was a lot of continuous interaction with that, the local governments within the communities as well. And so it was a real life situation. It wasn't very just conceptual and theoretical.
And we only have a few seconds left, so I have to make it brief, but of course this is all nonprofit, right?
Yes.
So if somebody wants to do a project, how would they get a hold of you?
Just give me a call here at the university and visit our website, tejidogroup.org, and all the contact information would be available there.
And of course, they can visit our website at azpm.org to get some of those links. So thank you to both of you for coming on today.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Gunfire explosions and billowing thick black smoke at a mall in Kenya's capital marked the third day of a standoff between government troops and al-Qaeda-linked terrorists. Good evening, I'm Gwen Eiffel.
And I'm Judy Woodruff in New York tonight, where I just spoke with former President Bill Clinton in a wide-ranging conversation about Kenya, a possible diplomatic opening from Iran, and more.
Maybe we will see an opportunity seized by this new president of Iran. We have to explore all those things and work for the best while we prepare for the worst.
Plus, Paul Salman looks at how employers are reacting to the mandate to provide insurance under the health care reform law.
It's something that companies across the country are now weighing. Keep employees below 30 hours a week and thus avoid paying for their health insurance entirely.
Those are just some of the stories we're covering on tonight's PBS NewsHour.
Author Stephen King is not subtle about how he gets readers' attention.
My idea is to grab you by the lapels and say, I have this story, and when you hear it, you're not going to want to go to your job. You're just going to want to read this story and care about what comes next.
I'm David Green. Next from Stephen King is a sequel to The Shining, and he'll talk about it on the next morning edition from NPR News.
Electric vehicles have been around for decades, but after all of these years, they only make up a fraction of the cars on the road. However, different organizations in this country and abroad are encouraging drivers to take a second look at electric cars and find out how they can contribute to a more sustainable future. With more on this topic, we are joined by David Gebert. He is a member of TIVA2, the Tucson Electric Vehicle Association, which is cooperating with other groups to put together the Tucson Plugs In event this Sunday, September 29th. So thanks for coming in today.
You're welcome.
So first off, let's talk about electric vehicles. I mean, they made a big splash, but there really aren't that many of them on the roads right now.
Some of them were pulled off the road.
Oh, really?
There were standards that came in the 90s, and so Chevy and Chrysler and Ford Chevy had the EV1, Chrysler had the E-Van, Ford had the Ford Ranger electric, and Chevy pulled all of theirs back. They only leased them to begin with, and they pulled them back and crushed them. I don't know exactly what Ford and Chrysler did, but they also had much lower numbers of their vehicles. And their vehicles were basically conversions of what they had already on the road, whereas the EV1 was quite a vehicle.
So why pull it off the market?
They fought against the standard as they were making the vehicles that went with the standard, and they fought for years and years and years. The California Air Resources Board, it was called CARB, and I think I've got the initials right, was started in the late 80s or early 90s, started telling the auto manufacturers that they had to meet this standard of over their fleet. And the only way that they could see to do it, the manufacturers could see to do it, was to put on an electric vehicle. And so what happened was they were dragged into it and they didn't want to do it. And California was the only place where it was a standard. And so they continually fought. And every time that there was a vacancy on the board, they tried to get their person in. And over the years, they were able to do that.
I see. But at the same time now, electric vehicles are there and they are available and consumers are buying them.
Since about 09 or 10 again.
Right. But there's still some major obstacles, and we were just talking about one of them, cost.
Cost is the major obstacle. And it's the upfront cost, not the life of the vehicle cost. Imagine if you had no belts, no hoses under pressure. There are some cooling aspects, but generally air-cooled, low-temperature cooling, where you're cooling a motor that's not a combustion motor. There are no explosions. It just spins so fast that you have to remove the friction, the heat of friction. And no oil changes. Brakes last longer because you regen from the motor, you regenerate power back into the batteries by reversing the electricity on the motor, and that slows you down rather than when you hit the accelerator, it speeds you up. And so your brakes last longer.
So over time,
all those things.
Does it all weigh out, the savings?
It weighs out, and it actually, in some cases, the electric car wins by $5,000 or $10,000 over 5 years.
Wow, okay. Well, and so talk to me about sales, though. It sounds like there have been some maybe record-breaking sales with electric vehicles this year?
Well, sales are going up. By July, we had equaled the sales of 2012. And so we're going to at least double this year if that maintains. And August was good. I think September was kind of flat. So we're still on scope to double what was done in 2012. And if that continues, it's on its way.
So tell me about this event that's coming up, this plug-in event.
This is the third annual, and Plug-in America was started by a salesperson who sold the EV1. And she found that Chevy wasn't really backing her, and so she was, at the time that they pulled him back, she joined the customers and didn't want the EV1s pulled back. Said, you know, at least let the people have their cars. And I can't think of her name, but she's up there now. And Plug-in America and the Sierra Club and the Electric Auto Association, which has been around since 1967, teamed up 3 years ago and had National Plug-in Day.
All right, and I understand in this plug-in, it's a chance for people to come check out some of the vehicles that are available, and there's going to be a very special BMW at the event this year?
Yes, there are, I've heard variously 3 or 5 pre-production BMWs, I believe they're called. And these are electric BMWs, electric only, and we're going to have one here on Sunday.
People can lay hands on and
right.
awe and admire, right?
Yeah, BMW is kind of odd about it. I'm not sure that they even want anybody to sit inside it, but we'll see on Sunday.
And I'm sure you're going to be trying to convince them to let you have a key, right?
Right.
So, well, let's talk a little bit more about some of the trends with electric cars. You know, so for example, there's this group, Ecotality, supplied the plug-ins for vehicles and got a substantial amount of money from federal government grants and still wasn't able to stay in business. So there still are questions about, you know, the kind of economic and future of these vehicles. So
right.
What are your predictions? Are you more optimistic?
I don't know, as opposed to a loan, as some other things were, this was a grant, and Ecotality had to compete for the grant. We weren't happy because actually it was Ecotality's fault in our club's mind mostly, and I'm sure other clubs around too, that we didn't get the Nissan Leaf as soon as we could have because Ecotality hadn't put out a charging station. So they kind of had it all in development. And it was a grant because of the information that they had to gather for the government.
Right.
And so once they got their stations in, they were supposed to feed back. And at this point, according to some stuff I've read, they met 95% of the requirements for the grant.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we can't get the whole story because we've run out of time there. But thanks for coming in to tell us about this, and people can find out more about the event this weekend on our website.
Okay.
One of the best ways to save energy and resources is to think of another use for an item you no longer want. Maybe someone else can find it handy, or perhaps it can begin a new life as something else. Next, we'll take you to a couple of stores in Tucson that are keeping tons of materials out of the landfill, thanks to reducing, reusing, and recycling. Tony Paniagua and photojournalist Bob Lindbergh have that story.
We live in what is commonly described as a throwaway society. You buy something you like and you use it for a while, but when it no longer works or you don't want it anymore, into the garbage it goes. Multiply this by hundreds of millions of people around the world each day, and it's easy to see why these mounds of trash are piling up and growing. Man-made mountains of discarded dreams or desires. But a burgeoning interest in reusing and recycling is helping to level out the playing field, even if only by a fraction. Habitat for Humanity's Habit stores are an example. This is where you can buy donated items that may have ended up in the trash.
Both building materials and furniture and appliances, kitchen cabinets, things like that, and all the funds generated go into the construction account to help build habitat houses here in Tucson.
That big door, we bought the louver.
Oh, yeah. Oh, nice.
Terry D. is the director of retail operations at the store. It opened its doors in 2006, and now it occupies a large warehouse in Midtown Tucson that sees a steady stream of materials in this land of plenty.
We recently just received a full set of kitchen cabinets. Now, the owner of the home put in new kitchen cabinets to make the house more appealing to sell. And when the people that bought the house didn't like the cabinets, so they took the cabinets out and the appliances as well. So that's happened to us a lot, and we'd like that to, because we get really practically brand new cabinets in that case. And you should see 19 kitchen cabinets in one kitchen, big kitchen.
For shoppers like Kevin Webb, the store is a logical place to be on the lookout for products. After retiring in Tucson from Las Vegas, he began a new endeavor. He's rehabbing houses, so he's in need of items like plumbing fixtures, doors, and windows.
It's the ultimate recycling, no doubt about it. A lot of great stuff here at the Habby store. We're here quite a bit, but we do hit other secondhand stores around Tucson, always looking for good merchandise.
Here are some figures from Terry D, using just one common household appliance as an example.
The average weight of a refrigerator is around 235 pounds. We know that last year we sold about $24,000 worth of refrigerators, average cost at about $150, $200. So that comes out to about 35,000 pounds that we diverted from the landfill.
Deseret Industries in Tucson is several blocks away from the Habit store, and while its mission is very different from building houses, it is providing building blocks for the community. Deseret Industries is operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a way to help residents improve essential job skills.
It may be that they're underemployed. It may be that they've had difficulty obtaining a job, and so they're mentors that help them develop those job skills to make them marketable, give them training, and provide the opportunity that then they can receive full-time employment.
And it raises funds for the programs by selling pre-owned items to the public. Anything from something to wear to equipment that entertains or furniture on which to rest.
I've got a bunch of donations from a bunch of families in Marana.
Stephanie Ashcraft is a member of the church, and she's also a frequent contributor to the operation. She lives in another part of town, so she collects as much as possible before making the drive to this destination.
So it's a great way to, when you're thinking, what do I do with this item? Somebody could use it. This is a great way to get rid of it.
Supporters say this facility goes beyond the commonly cited win-win scenario, since there's a triple impact in this program. Thousands of pounds of materials are kept out of landfills. Dozens of people can improve their chances of getting a job.
And those that donate also benefit by being involved in the process and understanding that a small contribution can have a great impact.
We live in such a toss and go society, and it seems like we buy something and then all of a sudden we don't need it. And so I'd rather bring it here where I know it's going to go to somebody who needs it, where that they can use it, than just to toss it.
But there's the challenge of spreading the word and changing some ways of thinking so people can reevaluate their actions and behavior before chucking good items into the trash.
That's our show for tonight. To post a comment on any of these stories or to keep up with the latest news, you may visit our website at azpm.org. I'm Georgia Davis. Thanks for watching.